everyone. This is update for May 12th, day 809 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for May 11 and 10. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the general strategic updates, and then I'm going to switch to the situation on the battlefield. Obviously going to discuss the situation near Kharkiv. That was to extent strange move, but by the Russian side, but I'll talk about it once we get there. So first, there's also news in Russia, the fresh news. So the current, or at this point former Minister of Defense was effectively retired. This person. His last name is Shoigu. He was put in sort of purely decorative position by the Russian president. He was replaced with totally new person. He has economics background, actually econometrics background, totally not related to military. Wasn't any ever working in the military sort of industry or anywhere touching military. The reason probably for appointing this person is because he probably will be the idea is that he's going to be good organizer in terms of increasing military production in Russia, which is what Russia is sort of wants, needs, and it's accordingly to the plans. And this is in line with the plan to for the confrontation with the West. So again, Russian president wants someone who he believes much more capable and skilled at increasing military production. So that's essentially why he put this person without any military background. To be fair, current Minister of Defense, former Russian Minister of Defense, he didn't really have a real military education background. He was just also accidentally there. Just to give understanding, the position of the Minister of Defense is really, in some ways, purely economical. So basically, organizing military production supplies, drafting, recruiting, all of the sort of basically ensuring that the generals have tools to wage war with, and that's really, and that's why it makes sense that these people don't really have pure military background. They are more coming sort of from the economy, and that makes a lot of sense. And the reason I have two other people there is that the first one here at the bottom, his name is Timur Ivanov. He was actually deputy of this former Minister of Defense. He was arrested about 2 weeks ago on the bribery charges. There's no question he stole tons of money. There's probably some kind of connection to the former Minister of Defense as well, that they probably were doing it together. But in any case, the signs that the current Minister of Defense was sort of on the way out was this arrest of this person 2 weeks ago, which again is the sign that Russian president is actively sort of cleaning Russian military industrial complex of the people who are who basically misuse funds, right? So the most important part is to use what you have effectively, and obviously when people steal, you don't. And also this person, Timur Ivanov, also doesn't have military background, again, also coming from the business. So, and he was exactly doing that. He was responsible for some construction efforts and so on. So where exactly he was stealing money. This is, and the interesting part that this duo was clashing with the head of Wagner Group. If you remember, there used to be Wagner Group in Russia, which unclear what's going on with the allegedly people head of from the head of the group was has died in air catastrophe, but it's this is all kind of like unclear what really happened there, and what really, and if truly the person died, and but the point is, these two people were mortal enemies with Prigozhin, who was head of Wagner Group, and then actually took some of his business, specifically Timur Yamanov was basically took away some of the business that Prigozhin had, and so again, going back to this, that eventually this group that sort of nominally won over head of Wagner Group last year, they were also kind of dismissed in some ways. The only person who still remains is the head of general staff. His last name is Gerasimov. So he was also kind of, I wouldn't say a friend, but they had a good relationship with Minister of Defense, former Minister of Defense. So for now he remains, but there are a lot of rumors that he will go as well. But it's unclear if that's going to happen soon or he's going to remain for some time there. So this is in a nutshell the changes. The changes are the takeaway from all of this is that the Russian president wants to streamline and increase military production. He attempts to fight the corruption to extent. Obviously, it's endemic, but at least he slaps on the hands some people, so the rest of them are sort of stealing less or a little bit sort of more scared of stealing. But that's just the essence. So this is kind of like a bureaucratic attempt to improve bureaucratic system that kind of doesn't really work. That's in a nutshell what's happening there. Now let's move to the situation on the battlefield, and we're gonna jump to Kharkiv, where there was I would say strange Russian attack that I personally did not expect at all. It doesn't make a lot of sense. At least what's going on right now, it's still unclear what is going on, because it does look as a very limited, very narrow attack. Also, it looks like it's being done with in some way, in a peculiar way, where it's mostly infantry, and it looks like it's all special forces brigades. So for those who don't know, Russian military has special forces brigades. They usually about 300 to 700 people each. So they are in a way very different from regular brigades. So they are sort of more for special sort of purpose for doing more like a reconnaissance type of groups, and to basically the role is to infiltrate the enemy and sort of capture enemy positions through infiltration and destroying enemy in that way. So again, most of these attacks, it looks like they were carried out by the special forces brigades. I don't have numbers, together with Russian Air Force, where they were using this gliding bombs, so that was help. And this is combination of those two. So this kind of implies that the attacking forces are not terribly large in number at all. So that's one sort of important takeaway from this. The fact that Ukrainian defenses sort of, I wouldn't say collapsed, but were dislodged so easily is, I would say, attributable to the fact that um, the front line was manned by simply the Territorial Defense Unit. I think it's 125th Territorial Defense Brigade, which is basically pure infantry. At the same time, they also fighting pure, just infantry units on the Russian side, except much more skillful ones. And this, I would say, I would attribute it to the low motivation, which I've been talking about, where there, as long as there is meaningful or strong pressure from the Russian side, Ukrainian troops tend to withdraw. And here, this was exactly the situation where you have a strong mismatch, where you have fairly skilled troops on the Russian side with a special force brigade. They have, much better training than regular Russian troops, and they obviously have also much stronger motivation. So combination of those two things versus poorly trained, poorly organized, with relatively low motivation troops, that's what produced this result in general. Also, there's another point here. There's no really strong Ukrainian defensive lines straight on the border. So in a way, what Russian troops did, they captured this kind of like a forest field before the main defensive line of Ukrainian troops. So in some ways, it's all fairly logical what's going on. It's fairly easy to infiltrate and to capture because it's not really strongly defended. At the same time, it's very clear that Ukrainian troops are sort of not ready to sacrifice and low on motivation. However, the whole situation and even the way it develops, it looks like Ukrainian command has really problem um, with stopping advance of this Russian forces. They pulling various detachments from looks like from at least three brigades at this point, from 53rd, I believe 56, 57, and 42nd. So what this really means that there is organizational mass where the main body of the brigade is on the Donbass front line, but they pull whatever detachment they pull and they throw it here, and it's as I said, it's a mess. It's disorganized, and it just shows the chaos on the Ukrainian side in terms of organizational mess that Ukraine has. And then that's obviously the fault of top Ukrainian military command that's responsible for that. Going back to this whole purpose of this Russian attack, it doesn't make sense that this is to protect Belgorod or create a buffer zone. It doesn't really create any kind of buffer zone. There's plenty. If we look back at the map, there could be attacks from this where I show or from this area. So it's very narrow front line. So it's really not about creating buffer zone. And to be fair, to create to really create a buffer zone, Russian side needs to really capture Kharkiv, because Belgorod is about 30 kilometers from the state border. So if you really want to secure it, you need to push Ukrainian troops about 70, 80 kilometers from Belgorod. So which also means that you really need to capture Kharkiv. So again, this doesn't make sense. That the number of forces that are attacking also not that big. So the only way I can explain this attack, and this is hypothesis, I'm not saying I know for sure, is that the idea was to create this kind of like collapse and sort of embarrass Ukrainian political leadership, showing that things are truly collapsing on the front line, and create political stress and pressure on Ukrainian president, which it totally did. There's a lot of sort of negative discussion in Ukraine, why this was possible, how this collapsed so easily, and there's basically there's tons of criticism, which is totally earned of Ukrainian president and his sort of left and right hands as a result of this. Also, it's unclear what's going to happen, in the coming days because Russian pressure still remains, is still strong. These troops are fairly capable, and there is very high probability that they gonna capture more than what we're seeing. So let me actually talk a little bit about the specific situation on the front line. So the key objective at this point for the this Russian troops this incursion, I would say, is this large village, small town Liptsi, then Ternova is another one, Vesela, and then the other big one is this actually town Vovchansk. So this is immediate goals that Russian troops are pursuing in a very clear way. They initiated fight for Liptsi. There's nothing, it's so far quiet around Ternova, Vesela quiet, and then Vovchansk is in really bad situation right now. And I'm actually going to jump and explain why the situation there is really bad. And the loss of Vovchansk is going to really create quite a bit of problem from a propaganda perspective for Ukrainian president. So this is situation around Vovchansk. This is Vovchansk where I'm showing. So at this point, Russian troops looks like they captured this airfield, which is straight north of Vovchansk, and they are really creating a sort of significant sort of pressure and risk of encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Vovchansk. So as you can see, Russian troops are already on the flank, and this river is sort of relatively, I would say, relatively easy to cross. The more important, they looks like they captured this small village called Teche, and this tiny village here is tiny river called stream, really easy to cross and basically infiltrate and cut off this two main, basically pass to retreat and resupply. So again, this really creates a real threat of encirclement. I'm not saying it's happening, but situation for Ukrainian side is definitely not favorable, and there is a very high probability that this town is Vovchansk is gonna get lost by Ukrainian troops unless there is strong reinforcements coming, which we'll see if that it's gonna happen. And I would say that given that this is gonna be huge propaganda loss for Ukrainian president, he probably will throw some reinforcement there. But again, I'll continue providing updates on this situation. That's all on this what's going on near Kharkiv. Again, as I mentioned, just to summarize, it doesn't seem that Russian command has enough troops, like truly to capture Kharkiv, because you really need much more. The attacking force is probably, I would say, 10 to 15,000 at the best, maybe even less. So it's not really true for invasion force that you need to capture Kharkiv. As I mentioned before, you probably need at least roughly 200,000 troops, and it doesn't seem that Russian command has that in their disposal to sort of take a risk on that. Now let's move to the situation on the North Luhansk front line. Things here remain more or less the same, continuing Russian pressure towards Kupiansk from actually northeast and from southeast. There is some pressure here around village Terny. in this Serebransky forest. So basically, similar situation, but no major advances for Russian troops so far. Now let's move to the North Donbass front line. Things here more or less similar. Russian pressure towards Siversk in all of, as you can see, sort of frontal pressure, pretty primitive sort of attacks without really much advance here so far. Now let's look at the situation west of Bakhmut, and the immediate objective is this town Chasiv Yar, but really objective is this actually much bigger town Konstantinivka. So Russian troops continuing to expand this zone of control along this freshwater channel. So they basically now control it a little bit north of this road. So, but no major advances in terms of north of it around Kalinivka. They really need to capture village Kalinivka to be able to really move decisively around Chasiv Yar. So again, this is going to be long-term goal for Russian troops at this point. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. Things here actually remain more or less the same as shown this on May 3rd. Again, no major significant advances by Russian troops so far. They are contained. This is temporary containment. I'm not saying that things have stabilized. By no means they are. They're probably gonna get worse again. It's just a sort of slow grind behind the scenes that we're not seeing, where the Russian troops attacking Ukrainian forces, and basically it's a game of attrition. Once they reach that level of attrition, Ukrainian defensive lines will collapse, and they will sort of flood through those gates. Essentially, that's really how it works so far. This is the big picture of the whole section of the front. Again, Russian troops are moving forward. The only advance where I would say notable is that Russian troops almost captured the village Netailova here, and then it's going to be Karlivka. It's basically they're moving south of this pond along this road that I'm showing. Then also Russian troops continuing their attacks in Krasnohorivka. So far, it looks like they bogged down, I would say again temporarily. And then south of Marinka, there are no meaningful advances for Russian troops here. So in some ways, this whole disaster around Kharkiv is somewhat compensated that the rest of the front line is somewhat stabilized. Again, temporarily. Now let's move to the Zaporizhzhia front line. Things here again very similar. 2 points of pressure by Russian command. One is this area south of Velika Novosilka, where Russian troops slowly, very very slowly, capturing new territory, and the same is happening around Rabotino. So slow grind, slow move. Forward for Russian troops, but it's extremely small advances. Now let's look at the situation, finish with the situation along the Dnipro River. So there are no major Russian attacks to destroy the bridgeheads. At the same time, and I'm not sure, there are rumors that the Russian troops are practicing the crossing river, and essentially there are some indication that they may try to establish their own bridgehead on the western bank of Dnipro River. Essentially, I'm not sure how that's sort of realistic, but apparently down the road that's something that Russian command is considering seriously. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.